So here we are. The first video got cut off, but we can continue from where we were. So Goodland is written in 1992 and makes the argument for limits to growth. Rockstrom comes along in 2009 with an article called A Safe Operating Space for Humanity. And his basic argument is very simply the same as Goodland's, with slightly different conclusions. So what he suggests is that there are certain areas in which we have exceeded known thresholds in planetary stability. And we are approaching a domain in which the safety of the operating system of planet Earth is in jeopardy. And if you look at the diagram that he shows, the sectors of the, overlap, concentric circles. The concentric circles of thresholds and the sectors that he draws out for each of the components of planetary processes seems to indicate three things. One, that when it comes to biodiversity loss, when it comes to nitrogen pollution, and when it comes to phosphorus pollution, we have exceeded the thresholds. We have probably exceeded the thresholds of planetary capacity. When it comes to um, climate change and the other sectors that he's looking at, we are in unknown territory, but we may be approaching thresholds that are pushing us into a domain of unstable planetary processes. Think about this for a moment, okay? That we live on a single planet, and there are currently 7 billion humans on this planet. We're consuming something like 40 to 50% of net primary productivity. We're consuming something like 40 to 50% of the raw sources of growth that we can talk about in terms of planetary processes. That being said, there are other changes that we are causing besides the consumption of resources. So Goodland, to go back to Goodland for a second, talks about two kinds of constraints. He talks about the constraints in terms of sources and the constraints in terms of sinks. So we need nature for two things. We need nature first as a source of raw materials. And then we need nature as a sink for all our pollution. Because nature takes our pollution and turns it into new raw materials for us to use. It reprocesses our pollution, makes it into consumable resources, and feeds it back to us in a sense. Recycles our pollution for us. So Goodland argues that we have exceeded the limits for sources and we have exceeded the limits for sinks, and we need to shrink the material aspects of the human economy so that we can shift from a focus on growth to a focus on development. That there's a fundamental difference to be made between growth and development, and that when we talk about the ways in which change happens over time, we need to move more towards growth and further away from growth and towards development.